Reddit. What's your best no time to explain? Let's go. Story? A few years back my brother pulled up to my house with a paintball gun and told me to get in. He hands me the gun and says you'll know when to shoot. We go on a short drive to a corner where some kids began to egg his truck. I knew when to shoot. My archaeology crew and I were stuck in La Paz, Bolivia because of civil unrest that cut the roads leading to our dig site. We had been hanging out in La Paz for 2 weeks, trying to stay as warm as possible and waiting for any opening in the demonstrations. The Bolivian army fired into a crowd, killing several demonstrators, and both sides called a truce for 24 hours. That morning our professor ran into our rented apartment and yelled for us to grab all our gear. We have 5 minutes to leave. We had no idea what was going on. The prof took the next combi, and my poor Spanish skills meant I couldn't ask questions of my fellow passengers. We boarded one of the first combis out of La Paz and head out to the Altiplano. On the road we passed huge roadblocks, burning tires, piles of broken glass, and various debris with just enough room for a small car to make it through. The roadblocks resumed that night. We made it far enough to hike the remaining 12 hours to the site next day, and then we started digging. Went to a bar some friends and my parents in my hometown for my 21st birthday. Turns into a good 6 hours of drinking. Went to the bathroom, and while closing the lid after finishing, the entire bottom of the bowl shatters. I was legally drunk for my first time in said bar, and proceed to urge very loudly that we needed to leave. No, I don't think you understand. I destroyed a toilet, let's go. When I was 8, my parents took me over to their friend's house for an early dinner party. They had a daughter my age who was also my friend. She was really into animals and nature, so she wanted me to go with her about a block down her street to investigate a bird's nest she saw earlier in a tree. We go. She starts climbing while I'm on the ground watching. Then, about half a block away, this hippie looking surfer dude with long blonde hair and wearing nothing but shorts walks out of this house and notices us. I notice him for about 2 seconds and then look back up in the tree at my friend. Next, I hear a loud whistle, and when I look back in the direction of the surfer dude, he has his shorts down around his ankles with his willy whacker out in all its glory. I yell run. My friend is clueless, but somehow she manages to jump out of the tree, and we run back to her house as fast as our pint-sized legs will carry us. Luckily, my dad and her dad were right inside, and when I yelled there's a naked man chasing us, they were outside almost immediately. They find the surfer dude standing right in front of their driveway. I remember my dad saying, "Hey man, are you pulling your pants down in front of children?" And the guy responding with something like "duck you, man," and then walking away. The amazing thing is that we called the cops and they came over to file a report. But they recommended not pressing charges because the guy knew where we lived and might seek revenge. This was back in the mid 1970s. Hurricane Charlie was going to do a normal ride out the storm situation and play video games and eat junk food all weekend while it rained outside. I got a call from a buddy who'd said the hurricane just turned 90 degrees and made landfall in Sanibel, like 20 to 25 miles away. I rushed into my roommate's room and said grab 2 days worth of clothes. We are getting the duck out of here. Apostrophe. When we came back to the house it had been destroyed. The roof leaked and held water in the ceiling until it completely caved in, completely destroying everything we had in there. Not sure if this counts, but I was in high school and despite a hot girl waiting for the bus, being me and knowing I would just awkward all over myself if I tried things the normal way, I got on my best panicked face, ran up to her, and said, quick, there's no time. I need your phone number. Apostrophe. She blurted it out. I actually kept it in my head until I could get it down on paper and called her that night. We've been together for 13 years. I own a skate shop and it was also a popular hangout for skater kids. I was off one day and I get a call from a ecstatic skate kid that sounded in panic saying, "Get to the shop now." Click. I rushed down there. 2 minutes later, Anthony Kiedis walks into the shop. One of the kids had run into him in town and convinced him to come into the shop. All the skater kids are in my shop behind the counter with my employee pretending to work on things. put skateboards together, etc. It was hilarious to see them try to act naturally, and we all got to have a good conversation with Anthony Kiedis about skating, paddleboarding and kiteboarding, and he signed a girl's skate deck for our wall of fame that I still have. He's been back every year since then and is a regular customer. This past summer I delivered paddleboards out to his vacation home. Got a phone call from my sister one evening, and when I picked up the phone she was clearly running and out of breath. I could just make out her saying open the front door before the line went dead. So I ran to the front door picking up the heaviest thing I could find along the way. It was a climbing helmet BTW. Wrenched the door open and moved out the way just in time to see her bolting into the house past me. I slammed the door and wait for her to catch her breath. There was a giant ducking pheasant chasing me all the way from Tesco. Don't worry ma'am, I've got this. With that, I donned the climbing helmet and told her to call the police if I wasn't back in 5 minutes. When I was a kid my village had an evil ducker of a pheasant that would chase old ladies down the street. You could look out of the window and it would be strutting around the village square waiting for a pensioner to attack. Anyway, one day I was out in the garden with my dad, who was plucking a dead pheasant, and this devil bird jumped up onto the high fence and looked at us. I'm not kidding when I say it had the craziest look in its eye. I asked my dad to use my water pistol to blast it, so he pumped it to full power and shot the pheasant in the chest. This crazy bad just gripped the fence for the entire time it was being savaged by the jet of water from my Super Soaker 2000. It didn't fall off, and only flew off of its own accord about 10 minutes later. Then a day later I saw it dead in the road. When I was about 13, my buddy and I rode our bikes to the local mart to be bored obnoxious teenagers. Tossed some Nerf footballs over the aisles, ran around, mocked things. Then I thought it would be funny to spray my buddy with a perfume sample. He didn't think it was funny at all and started chasing me. I ran and hid, and the hunt was on. Using his finest ninja skills, he snuck around until he saw me, crouched down in the hardware aisle. He crept up behind me, put his ass right next to my head, and let rip. He turned around to gloat down. It wasn't me, just some poor schmuck looking at hammers. The next thing I know, he runs by me. We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. Apostrophe. Monash campus, Australia. Hanging around my dad's office. He lectured there, and I got to come in sometimes. Whole campus gets evacuated. Someone runs in, tells my dad there's a kid shooting people and to get the hell off campus. My dad rushes off, and I'm sitting there, 11 years old, with a face of, well, duck, now what? Apostrophe. TL. Doctor father forgets son during shooting on campus. Parent of the goddamn year. I was in high school, and my friend came running up to me and said, "No time to explain, I need your shoes." I spent the rest of the day walking around the school in socks and some makeshift shoes made out of a cardboard box. I later found out that the reason why my friend needed my shoes was so that he could participate in his chemical lab class and not fail due to his not wearing shoes. My brother is 11 years older than me and stayed with my dad when my parents divorced, so I never really got to live with him when we were young. When I was about 14, he barged into my room at 4 AM and told me to pack your shit for 4 days. Our flight leaves in 2 hours. Apostrophe. Soon after I was on a plane. Turns out, he had planned us a trip to Colorado to go snowboarding and told no one but my mom. 1 hour before he told me. My dad, working in the WTC, had a huge crash several floors above him. Boss looks at him and says, "No time. Let's go." He lived. About 11 or 12 years ago I was taking my dog for a walk in the forest behind the local elementary school. He seemed all anxious to get off leash, so I unleash him, since I figure he wants to run around and pee on everything. The moment I let him off leash he starts barking at me. In hindsight, my best guess at what he was trying to convey was "no time to explain. Let's go." And then he bolts. I'm pissed off and start chasing after him, but he was goddamn fast even by dog standards. Turns out on the other side of the woods, there was a middle-aged guy who had exposed himself to a group of young girls. They ran away screaming, and he was trying to make a grab for one of them. It was at this moment that my dog came bursting out of the woods like Lassie or in Tintin or some shit. My dog was popular among the kids, so they knew him. They screamed his name and ran towards him. The pedo bailed, with his Johnson still hanging out of his pants. I was fully prepared to reprimand my dog for being an asshole. Then I found out what happened. He got steak for dinner. Okay, I have one for this. My wife and I went to Scandinavia in the winter for our honeymoon. First Copenhagen, then Helsinki, then northern Finland. Yes, this is an odd choice. Our flight got diverted, and en route to Copenhagen, our luggage, including all of our winter gear, was lost, and the airline was unable to locate it for the 4 days we were in Copenhagen. However, we made friends with one of the customer service agents at the airport. We returned to the airport on the day of our flight to Helsinki, still with no luggage, and dreading the Arctic cold we were about to fly into. Temperatures were in the single digits in Finland, but unable to do anything about it. Magically, we found our luggage at the airport that morning, and went through security to our gate. It was about half an hour before boarding, when our friend from customer service, on the other side of the airport, ran up to us and said, "Follow me and don't ask any questions. We don't have much time, and there is something I must do for you." Then he led us through a series of back hallways in the airport to his office. "What I'm about to tell you must tell no one else," he said. "In 20 minutes, our pilots are going to announce a strike, and all our flights will be grounded." This was in no way public knowledge. He put us on another flight to Helsinki with a different airline, and we watched in gratitude and amazement from the Finnair terminal as the strike was announced, and our original flight, along with every single other SAS flight leaving Copenhagen, was grounded. Epilogue: we found ourselves in Copenhagen again a year later, and we went to the airport specifically to try and find our friend and thank him. But it was his day off. I'd asked Reddit to pass on my thanks, but I'm pretty sure what he did was against company policy and I wouldn't want to get him in trouble for doing a good deed for a young couple. I was at a house party over the summer that started going a bit south. So, my friend and I decided to just get in the car and drive home. We got to the car and were waiting for the third guy in our group when a very, very drunk guy came up with his red Solo cup of beer. We were friendly to him, asked him what he was drinking and all. He decided the best reaction to this was to throw the beer at me while I sat in the car. After this happened, I noticed a group of about 7 or 8 more drunk people ambling towards the car. They did not look happy. My friend decided the best response to this was to go to the back of his car, grab his shotgun and 2 shells. Oh duck. He stood next to his car with the drunk bastard slowly approaching, yelled at them once, "Get away from my car," while loading the shells. They did not stop. He fired once into the air away from them, cocked the gun, and said again, "Get away from my car." About 1/3 left after that, so he fired once more, and the rest scattered. He had just fired a gun at a house party. Twice. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Our friend then came out of the house screaming, "No time to explain. Let's go." We never went back to that house. TL. Doctor nearly drunk and brawl broken up by shotgun. Walking home from playing football in the park and my dad, aggressively speeding down the road in his car, brakes hard next to me. He looks angry as duck and my little brother is crying, and he sternly says, "Get in." I roll with it, and he speeds around the park looking attentively out the window. My little brother points at a group of lads, maybe 16 to 17 years old. One of them is running with my little brother's glasses. He's only about 10 years old. My dad jumps out the car. I'd be tackling the lad to the floor. My dad is huge, and the lads look petrified. My dad absolutely bawls at them for about 5 minutes. After that he gets back in the car, and then we go to McDonald's. Edit. Bawl. Verb. Shout or call out noisily and unrestrainedly. Just a little context for people who think the word ball has a single meaning. Edit 2. Replacing the letters B and T in football, because I mixed them up. I would like to apologize to my fans for letting them down. Edit 3. Roll. Not roll. It's been a slow morning. Final edit. I'd like to point out for clarity, my brother was 10. The lads were around 16 to 17. A little over 2 years ago, I was in an abusive marriage. I had realized that the abuse was never going to stop and told my husband that I was going to divorce him. The next day, he acted as if nothing was wrong and he had accepted that I was moving out as soon as I was able. He was working until midnight, so he wasn't home. Yet when I went to bed, I woke up later to my husband twisting my arms behind my back and slamming his head into my face. He kept me pinned down for what felt like an eternity, out of sheer desperation, and despite how much it hurt, I somehow was able to get out of the hold eventually and ran into the bathroom with my phone, slamming the door shut with my body just in time. I called every close friend I had, but no one would pick up the phone. It was now after 3 AM. I had been pinned down for over 2 hours. I finally overcame my shyness and texted a coworker I had recently met who just happened to live nearby and who had also told me that he stays up most of the night. I texted, "Are you awake?" and got the response, "Yeah." Scared that my husband's efforts to pick the lock on the door would soon prove fruitful, I decided to take the chance and make a run for it. I shoved my cell phone into my tank top and calculated the location of my coat, shoes, and wallet. When I burst out of the door, my animal instincts took over. He threw me on the ground. I jumped back up. He grabbed my arms. I twisted away. I was able to grab my shoes and nothing else, but that was enough. I ran down the hallway barefoot and then into the snow and 10-degree Minneapolis winter. I hid by the building for a moment, putting on my shoes, and then ran to my coworker's apartment. Downtown Minneapolis is a scary place, even if you're not dressing in only a tank top and sweatpants at 3 AM. But I ignored the calls from random people on the street and kept running. Once I was outside my coworker's apartment, I suddenly became truly scared. What if he wasn't even home? I made the phone call. "I'm outside. I'll explain later. Please, can you let me in?" My coworker came downstairs a moment later, a bewildered look on his face. His reaction upon seeing me there, barely dressed and shivering in the snow, was simple. "Jess, what the hell?" 2 years later, I'm divorced and the happiest I've ever been. That coworker is the best friend I have ever had, and I'm so grateful to him for letting a girl he had just met into his apartment at 3 AM without any explanation. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.